modern age, media exposure, to some extent, are results of what he has done, and to some other extent, and in some other perspectives, one could even call it collateral damage, as it could detract from the facts that what he's trying to do time and time again has been consistent and has nothing to do with whether or not this is presented for the purpose of preening. So Bernie, thank you very much for that honor of inviting me today. But for those of you that may have had already in your hands a copy of the book, I received mine this morning, so I have to confess I haven't gone through the whole book. It is a humbling experience for me to see that a column that I had written in the Inquirer some months ago is printed in full as part of the foreword of this book. I don't know why he chose my column, or even me. Maybe he can explain that later. I would like to believe, for example, that there are those in our community that may not be associating me with issues like this, and they probably would have expected that I would be writing time and time again about the public surplus or deficit, about taxation, about international finance, etc., etc. But I ventured instead into something that may have been unexpected. I did that partly because of a conviction on my part that there is a tenet of economics that we may have overlooked that is very important and almost commonsensical for a country like the Philippines. And that is that you proceed to strengthen your economy on the basis of your comparative advantage. What is your strength, and how do you go with the flow of that strength? When we talk about comparative advantage among economists, most of the time you end up with all kinds of very arcane stuff, like land, labor, blah, 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 blah. You all know it. And I thought that the culture, history, and particular gifts that a country somehow, without meaning to or intending to, had been given are part and parcel of its character and eventually its comparative advantage. And one of them is Christianity. For us to conduct a debate on population and RH Bill, and as a result of this debate, consider that Christianity should be a piece of collateral damage is an absolute mistake. What we should be doing instead is realizing that it happens to be part of our history and asking ourselves why. And proceeding to realize that it is not something we can erase by constantly questioning what is the real identity of the Filipino. Because the real
to an unshakable belief whose very foundation is being above us that changes ultimately the world, however long it might take. So to some extent, that is the quote-unquote economic argument that I was trying to make in that particular short piece. I'm so honored, of course, as I said, that Bernie has decided to put it in his book. Particularly because his book is once again an exercise in looking at and analyzing the truth. That column, Chosen People, to some extent had a companion piece that I wrote many months before that on RH Day, which was entitled Pill to Bill. I don't know if anybody of you saw it. just like Bernie's book, which goes into a stages, it tries on the basis of rationality and fact. While it did not present statistics, basic thesis shied away from the usual shrill screams. The question, why do you need it actually? Stopping anybody in this country right now from pursuing their particular idea of how to proceed the lines of having a family of this size or that size. But to enshrine it as part of the law of the land is quite another matter. It signals a allegedly commonly held feel among them that the way to go. And that is, of course, doubtful and open to question. I was also a bit alarmed, since I wrote this at the time of the initial versions of the bill, that because it's a piece of law, what it would end up doing is transferring personal moral choice from the arena of personal moral choice to the arena of legislation and eventually litigation. It will be a field day for lawyers, and your behavior and mine in cases which involve personal choice and morality are now subject to interpretations by clever lawyers in the courts of law. If you think in your heart of hearts that that is the kind of progress in the United States that we should emulate, well, go right ahead and support that line of thinking and evolution of our society. If, on the other hand, you believe that we have a uniqueness of purpose and design which does not have to copycat all the way to the point where you have a society that allows children to sue their parents and so forth and so on, perhaps you may want to think more than once. Without meaning to give you a long speech, let me just summarize therefore a few thoughts. Number one, do not trivialize your Christianity. What do I mean? Well, I observe, for example, that it's only Christianity that likes to joke about its deity. Okay, this may be an expression of how free we are as free thinkers, but I can give you a slew of Jesus jokes. I have yet to find that many Buddha jokes or Muhammad jokes. Now, that is not to say that being humorous even about Jesus is a bad thing. That is only to say, don't carry it too far, to the point that you begin to take even your jokes seriously. And your convictions less seriously, because joking and so forth is part of the democratic freedom of speech, while convictions could be challenged and you may find yourself labeled as out of fashion. The second, of course, is to emulate, to the extent that you can, what Bernie has been doing all these years. And that is constantly search for the truth. And upon finding it, defending it. And that, I think, is the lesson I myself learned by observing how Bernie has conducted himself through his life. And in this particular issue of population, I think it will him to say, if it was an automatic knee-jerk reaction born out of his association with groups. This is what you call shooting the messenger.
without even attempting to understand the message. Well, we shall not fall into that trap if we are indeed capable of emulating this basic principle of searching for the truth. And finally, I ask you all to think once again, what is the real meaning of being a Filipino? Doesn't it include the fact that we have comparative advantages passed on to us by our historical heritage? If that is indeed the case, and if that is indeed, as it has been done time and time again throughout the history of every country given by divine providence, it would be unwise to fight it. It would be wiser to go with the flow and take that advantage and make it shine. And perhaps that will be the beginning of true Philippine international respectability. My congratulations to Bernie, and I do wish all of you well, and of course read the book, understand it as much as you can, and if you find that it does contain the truth, then be